Hello, and welcome to Newark City of Poets. I am your host, Jaleesa McEachin, and today we are here with the poet and author. He is just all around amazing. We are here with Sean Battle. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, and thank you, Newark City of Poets, for all the work that you've done so far this season.
Oh, thank you. So I want to begin by asking you, when did you begin writing poetry?
That would be junior year, Pennsauken High School in Pennsauken, New Jersey. I was born in Camden, but my mother got me out of there, and so I finished up in Pennsauken. What ended up happening was I had a homework assignment for my U.S. history course. Something random, kind of random at first. Write a poem in response to our lesson at the time on World War One. Not even World War II, World War One. Typical high school procrastination, if you will. I waited until the day of the lunch period before class to get the poem done. Had to rip out a friend of mine's composition notebook paper, wrote a quick rhyme because all poems have to rhyme, and it ended up being my first persona poem in which the writer takes on the voice of another person, place, or even thing. I took on the voice of a soldier in the trenches, and I ended up having, that was also my first performance as well, because we ended up having to share in the middle of class,
Right.
a little reading contest. What was crazy is I was the quiet kid in a class full of popular folk, if you will. You know, the student athletes,
Like the typicals.
the typicals, all oozing with confidence every time I see them. We do the reading contest. They are up there, paper shaking in their hands, and something in me just said, you have all this attention on you. You have all these people at the palm of your hand because of other activities that you have or whatever reputation that you have in the context of high school. How dare you come, and I'm quoting poet Taylor Molly here, how dare you come less with than your very best, you know? And that snapped something in me to where when I read. Like, there was an energy in me that just took over and ended up getting a standing ovation.
So it just opened up something new within you that you didn't know that you had.
Exactly. And I'm like, where did this come from? Something that I should have known looking back, because I've always been the type of kid who, I don't have siblings on my mother's side of the family, so I was the only child. And what ended up happening is I had to entertain myself. So I was one of those children where I would create my own worlds. I would be my own characters, you know, being the Red Power Ranger and stuff like that.
So it's like a one-man play.
Exactly. A precursor to everything that's led up to this point. I even say now, I write to create a world when it feels like I don't belong anywhere else.
And that's important because, you know, there are a lot of children that feel like they don't belong. And most of the time, those are artists. They
Yes.
just don't know that they're artists.
Exactly.
Now, I know that you also have the MFA.
Yes.
Do you believe that it's important for all creative writers to obtain that degree?
Let the record show that I'm saying this fully well known that I am privileged in having an MFA, which is a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing. No, you do not need a MFA degree. And I say this because my experience at Rutgers Newark with the Master of Fine Arts, it was good in a sense that it gave me something to compare and contrast my experience in the Newark art scene outside of it. In a lot of within both of those circles, I have particular lenses on me. In the academic world, because I also have a bachelor's in English, in the academic world, I am seen as the spoken word artist. In the open mic scene, I was the MFA student, or now, because I work here at Essex County College, I'm the professor. I'm the writer. So I've been back and forth between those two lenses, and if anything, it's given me that something to work off of. But I say you don't need an MFA degree to be an artist,
Right.
because that sets a dangerous precedent, if you will. that you need some type of degree to be an artist, when I know many of writers, many of performers who don't have even a bachelor's degrees. They can write circles around me, period.
You know, and that's really, really like amazing that you would say that, because a lot of times we need validation, and sometimes we use our degrees as validation. Not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but as an artist, you know, you always want to feel like you're one of the best. But
Yes.
sometimes we get caught up in the accolades part of it, where it's like, okay, I don't have this, so maybe I'm not the best.
Right.
And for you to say that, you know, you can be the best without having like, you know, a degree or an award to tell you that you're the best, you can still be the best.
It's not even about being the best. And I get caught up in this as well sometimes. I got to catch myself. It's not even about being the best, because there will always be someone better than you. It's about being at your very best,
And that's
no matter
important.
what that is. So it's a matter of keeping that in perspective. And we get caught up in accolades sometimes, because for a lot of people, I know for me, the arts defines my life and it defines my career. It is through the arts that I ended up becoming a teacher. And you end up meshing, you know, the need to have your art validated with the need to have certain accolades on your resume so that you can get a better position and things like that. Which, you know, I'm all about intersection. Everything intertwines with each other.
Right.
And so you just get caught up in trying to just survive in this world, especially because I know what body I'm in. I am a black male poet, a black American male poet. And I know that comes with certain expectations, certain stereotypes, certain things that I need to uplift or dismantle. And so everything ends up coming together as a result.
And I mean, it's important to say that too, because I know, like you say, you're a professor here. And a lot of times I think that poetry is left out of the curriculum. But as teachers, you know, I'm not a teacher, but, you know, looking into the lens, because I have a daughter.
Right.
And, you know, she's in school and you deal with a lot of different things. And I believe that poetry is one of the ways that you can kind of like bring out what you're going through and maybe share it and, you know, help someone else.
Right.
And like right now, I know that we're going through a lot of like, you know, people killing each other. And a lot of times kids deal with that. You know, do you think that there's enough poetry in the curriculum for students to express themselves, or not even just poetry, enough like creative writing for students to express themselves?
I think there's enough creative writing in general in terms of the classes. However, my concern has been, are you, and this is another thing that kind of goes back to the MFA program, are you speaking enough to the artists of today? One of my things about the MFA program is that I always had this question of, well, is there room for collaboration between, you know, the Rutgers Newark program and its aesthetic and the art scene outside of it? And I've seen it happen before, a bunch of times, where collaboration has occurred. But it's always good to keep that question going, especially when you have artists like myself who live within both of those dichotomies and take from both dichotomies and have friends and colleagues in both dichotomies. I believe there's enough creative writing courses, but my thing is, and this goes back to high school even, when I was introduced to poetry, I wasn't introduced at the time to Amiri Baraka. I wasn't introduced to even the performance artists or the quote-unquote spoken word artists of that time period, whoever was, you know, at on top. And I was in high school during the time of Def Poetry Jam. So I didn't even have that unless I searched for it. So it was a matter of, and this is why I keep in mind as well, am I able to expose my students or expose those who want to learn from me to the artists of today? It is very important that people see that poetry did not stop in the black arts movement. It did not stop in the late 90s, that it is still going on, especially as a black artist, especially as a black person who needs to see their stories, you know, out there on that page, because a lot of times representation is the only thing.
And it's important that you mentioned collaboration too, because a lot of times artists do feel like, you know, they can't work with other people because they don't want to step on somebody or they don't want to steal someone's shine. But I believe like it's a picture that's out there of Maya Angelou and Amiri Baraka, and they're dancing together in the Schomburg Center.
On a portion of where a portion of Langston Hughes' ashes lie. In fact, that circle is the Rivers exhibit, which is based on his poem "The Negro Speaks of Rivers."
Yes.
And
Talking about how the bones are at the bottom, and yes, I love that poem.
I love it. And what's crazy about that is because I just this past weekend, and what was my third time being in that building in the Schomburg, I actually performed there for the first time ever. Israel Productions and the collective under it, To Whom We May Concern, got myself and a dozen Jersey artists together to produce a show called The Road to Consciousness. And it was Jersey being represented in New York in the Schomburg Center. I performed right on top of that same circle, that very same circle. And I said in an interview during that show, I've been writing and performing for 10 years now. To have that moment, after everything that I've been through, after everything that has been sacrificed for artists like me to exist right here, right now, if that is not a perfect alignment, I don't know what is.
And it's funny that you mentioned like being in that same spot that Maya Angelou and Amiri Baraka was in. You were also a guest at the the Geraldine R. Dodge Poetry Festival, which is a poetry festival that brings artists and poets from around the world to Newark, New Jersey. You know, how did it feel to be there and just know that there were so many greats there before this great got there? How did it feel to know that you were a part of that bill that said Sean Battle?
You know, this was actually the second time that I had performed at the Dodge Poetry Festival as a showcase poet of some kind. The first time was through the MFA program, and then this past festival, which was last year, I performed again, but this time it was a part of the showcase Brick City Voices, and I shared the stage with Starsky. I shared the stage with Mia X, who was a guest here at Newark City Poets as well. And it's funny that you mentioned Amiri Baraka and Maya Angelou. I've said before, Mia is my Amiri, she is my Maya. This community is Amiri and Maya, just with the warmth and the love that she gives.
Yes.
So being able to share the stage with her and to create history in that space, and to provide something different. The Dodge Poetry Festival brings together many voices all around the world into what is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, poetry festival in the U.S. And to know that, yes, this is being hosted in Newark, but it is important to have those local voices be showcased on some level, because it needs to be known. When that festival leaves, the poetry is still being done. The work is still being done. And
seeds are still being planted, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just important that we get those opportunities and we strive for more. I want that main stage. I want that central stage. That's what I'm aiming for right now. This was the beginning, and I got to keep going as well as my colleagues.
Now, I know that you were saying something, because we're going to switch a little bit of gears. You wrote this poem that is something that like touched me when I first heard the poem, and it's called Black and Blue.
Yes.
Now, I know this is like one of your signature pieces, and I love this poem because it's so real.
Yes.
Tell me about how you put this poem together, because the wording in this poem it's crazy. Like, and it speaks truth to life.
Well, first off, the form is an expansion of a form that is still young per se. It's called a bop poem. It was created by the poet Afaa Michael Weaver through him teaching at a retreat, a well-known black poetry retreat known as Kave Kana. And the form basically, it comes from, first off, the name comes from what old Baltimore slang that describes a person's walk or a man's walk. And he has gone on record to saying